Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acomb. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and joining me in that studio this morning, Judge Matt McCarthy. Thanks so much for being back on the show. I almost said for the first time.
Thank you for having me back, Frank.
Yeah, we've got a lot to catch up on, but first, how's the campaign going?
It's going fantastic.
Yeah.
Just a very positive response from all over Steuben County. I'm getting positive feedback. People are excited to go out and vote. Obviously, that's the one thing that I'm here to do is encourage everybody to get out and vote on November 5th. We're celebrating Veterans Day the next week, and Veterans Day, our election next Tuesday is only because of Veterans Day.
Yeah.
So I encourage people
100%.
to get out and exercise that right.
They should almost put it on the same day.
That'd be nice. Yes, that'd be more than appropriate.
Yeah, and I know early voting in Steuben has been very busy, is what I understand the numbers.
Massive turnout.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought I'd see the day that we'd be talking about early voting, and I myself would go early voting.
I did too yesterday. Yesterday I voted.
Good for you. So we'll get away from the campaign, though. I will talk about what people are asking you and things like that in a little bit. But let's start with the easy question, but that's so important. Tell us a little bit about your background and experience.
Well, I'm born and raised in Steuben County. Both my wife and I were born and raised here. She comes from Howard, a large farming family. Both her mother and father grew up here. My father was from Elmira, son of a prison guard and World War II veteran. My grandmother on my father's side was a school teacher, so very humble beginnings. And my father went to law school after serving during Vietnam. He was drafted after serving and becoming a sergeant in the Army and serving 13 months overseas. He came back here, finished his law school, and joined a practice in Bath with Hank Scudder, eventually Justice Scudder. And when I graduated from law school, I graduated from Avoca, went to St. Bonaventure, Albany Law School. When I graduated from Albany Law School, I came back to join his practice. So that's just brief background, and I really wanted to come back and practice here locally because of the influence of Justice Scudder, my father, and all the attorneys that I grew up watching, spending time at my father's law office.
Right. And there's something about getting back to the community that you were born and raised in, right, and being a part of it. We've talked about this with numerous candidates. It's a special feeling when you talk to people when you're getting petitions signed or you're campaigning, knowing that this is your community that you're talking to.
Yes, I mean, the community values in Steuben County are what raised me and what frames my opinion on the legal stuff. When you're practicing and you're a judge, you take the facts of the case that come before you, apply the law, but you can't help being influenced by the community that you were raised in.
Of course.
And so that's crucial. And I feel very fortunate that I've been able to give back to that community over the last 20 years.
Now, I know you are the acting Steuben County and Family Court judge. Why did you decide to run for the 10-year term?
Well, it's just more about the focus on the more serious cases. When I'm Corning City Court judge, I handle low-level misdemeanors and things of that nature. I do 3 days of family court a week, and that won't be changing. That part of the job will remain the same. But I'll be handling more felonies and more serious criminal court matters, and that's really the only change that will take place. But I really want that challenge. I've handled a couple of those over the last 10 years. I conducted a felony jury trial. I handled county drug court for several years. And so I'm looking forward to getting back up to Bath and handling the more serious cases.
Is it going to be tough to leave courting?
It's going to be very tough.
Yeah.
I mean, this was such a blessing to be serving as the Corning City Court judge for the last 10 years. It really changed my life 10 years ago when I won that election and was very fortunate to do that. And just serving this community, it's a great place to live. I don't regret ever coming back here to be with my family and my father, my mother, my brother and sister, my wife, and we just enjoy every day. Every time I pull off the highway and you're pulling into Corning and seeing, the lights light up from Corning Incorporated, it's just such a great view,
really
and just the hills and surrounding area and the Finger Lakes region overall.
It is hard to believe it's been 10 years, isn't it?
It's time goes by so quickly, especially the older you get. It seems like just yesterday I was knocking on everybody's door here in the summertime asking for their support to run for Corning City Court judge.
I will say, as a radio host at the time, that was a blast for me. It probably wasn't for you, but I was talking to you guys more than I was talking to my own family.
Yes, that was a very interesting race. There was a Democratic candidate, there was a third-party candidate, and then I had the Republican line. So it was really just a push to the very end.
And you were all hardworking. It wasn't like anybody phoning it in. My goodness.
Massive amounts of work put in by all the candidates. And all the candidates in that race were very qualified for the position. So it was just important for me to get out and communicate directly with the voters in Corning And I think that's really what put me over at the end.
And is it more difficult running at a county level than it is in the city? Because on the city, you were great at it, knocking on doors and talking with everybody. Steuben County is a big county.
It is. It's different.
Yeah.
In Steuben County, when you're running a countywide campaign, you still have to do that door knocking and asking for people's votes, but it's more about attending events. And what I've really realized running this time, there's a lot of beautiful areas in Steuben County, whether it be Jasper, Woodhull, Addison, Tuscarora, Canisteo, and really over in Hornell, there's a lot of fantastic events that take place over there, as well as in Corning. I always thought that it was more just, I was always Corning centric, I would say. Just because I was raised in Avoca, but it was always you came to Corning for something to do.
Right.
And really what I've realized during this race is, there's fun things to do in Cohocton, there's fun things to do in Wayland. It's just a very large county, but community is overall, the sense of community, while different in each location, is still the overwhelming sense that you look out for your neighbors and you appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, Hornell does have a Christmas celebration too. It's not just sparkle and cork, right?
Yes. Well, and Cohocton has the Fall Foliage Festival. Hornell has a fall festival. There's a lot of those things that take place, and I didn't realize how many until I went around to a lot of them in the last couple of weeks. So.
I'm sure. Now, because you've been acting Steuben County and Family Court judge, which we joked last time came as kind of a surprise to you when you won for a Corning City Court. Were there any surprises when you took over that maybe you weren't expecting in that role?
Well, the in-court stuff is what I expected, because I had been a part-time ADA, assistant district attorney, working in that office for over 9 years, and had been in family court every day. What I didn't realize was how much work goes into preparing that calendar and doing the back office stuff. I have a very, very good staff down here in Corning, and the family court clerk's office up in Bath is excellent. And a judge is only as good as their support staff in preparing those files and making sure that everybody's on the same page. So that was the one thing that did surprise me, is just how much work goes into it. Just getting ready for that 2 hour, it's kind of like a music concert. You spend an entire week prepping for that 2 hour show. And so to make sure it goes off without a hitch, it's a lot of work that goes into it. So that was a surprise.
Yeah. And we've talked with a lot of judicial candidates on this program a lot. That's probably the most competitive races, as a matter of fact, in our area. A lot of really Chemung and Steuben and New York State Supreme Court. And one of the things that keeps coming up is kind of workload based on maybe COVID or based on just, unfortunately, more need in our community for workload. Have you found the workload difficult?
It's been consistent over the 10 years. Obviously, in 2020, there was a dip because the courts weren't in operation and people weren't able to file petitions. But really, it's been consistent, especially criminal court-wise. If you look at the numbers for Corning City Court, for instance, it's varied maybe 100 cases a year. But when you're talking about, 500, 600, 700, 800 cases, that's not a lot, depending on the nature of those cases. When dealing with family court, you're talking about thousands of filings every year, whether it be under family offense petitions. But those have pretty much remained consistent, other than the anomaly of the 2020 year when the courts were shut down for a period of time. But even during that court shutdown, I was holding court. I went to the courthouse and got the New York State flag, the American flag, and the state of New York flag. I put them in a room behind me, painted the wall white, sat at a table and did everything virtually. And so we were able to do that and continue serving the people of Steuben County and providing them justice and an opportunity to be heard, even during COVID when the world shut down.
And the work had to be done, right?
It had to be done. I mean, these family court cases and criminal court cases, you want to provide the participants their answer fairly and efficiently, but criminal court-wise, defendants are entitled to their rights, but you want to respect the victims in those cases as well and provide them justice. Yeah, there is a time frame that needs to be upheld, right?
Absolutely. Just a side note, because we've talked in Chemung County, there's quite a few family court race. Is family court difficult because there is such a direct impact that you can see?
Well, it's difficult because you're dealing with something that's, when you're in criminal court, you're dealing with people's freedoms and you have victims. Equal to that, when you're dealing in family court, you're dealing with the other thing that people hold very dearly, which is their children.
Right.
And so you have to appreciate that and respect that. Whenever you're looking to change custody or placement or remove a child from their parent, that is the most serious decision that a judge can make. And when people have that happen to them because of drug addiction or mental health issues, it can't be held against them. If they go and get help, you need to make sure that they're aware that that's what you're encouraging them, so they can be there for their children in the future. And that it's not the end of the world if they get their children temporarily removed from them. They just need to handle the issues that are causing them problems at that time. And you need to make sure that they understand that when they're before you, that you have empathy for them, and that you're looking to return that child to them. And the Department of Social Services does a very good job in Steuben County, even upon those very difficult cases of abuse and neglect. The goal is always return to parent to start off with, and only if the parent doesn't do what they're asked to do does that change to either adoption or alternative placement.
We're talking about the race for Steuben County and Family Court Judge. You were talking about campaigning and going to the various festivals, knocking on doors. What are some of the things that you've learned talking to the residents of Steuben County, maybe things that surprised you, or what are they saying in general?
Well, on the criminal side, and honestly it impacts the family court side, is obviously the concern over the opiate epidemic and fentanyl. Obviously that's
issue number one.
That's issue number one. The crime rate, bail reform is obviously another issue that they're wanting to discuss on the criminal side. On the family court side, it's mostly just about being able to be heard in family court and the speed at which those things occur. And I really focus on that as a judge. I move these cases along. They put in place something several years ago called standards and goals, which actually kept track of judges. And you have to report any case that's over misdemeanor over 90 days, felonies over 6 months, and in family court cases over 6 months. You have to report those to Rochester.
Oh, wow.
And they send out a report, kind of a shame report to the judges asking for an explanation if you have so many cases over standards and goals. They're asking why you haven't been able to resolve those. And I'm very proud of my record with respect to that. I've never had to answer anybody in Rochester with respect to why these cases are over standards and goals. Wow. So I'm very proud of that fact.
And you should be. That sounds like an interesting. It actually does sound like that could be effective.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
You sometimes wonder when things are enacted.
Well, and sometimes in that situation, you have to, there's a valid reason that they might be going on a long time. It's a very complicated case.
Yeah, of course.
A murder case obviously takes longer than a petty larceny to resolve.
Right.
And so you just, contact the Rochester and say, look, this has been pending for 3 years because it's a very complicated murder case.
Right.
And that's an excuse, and they accept those.
Yeah.
I mean, when there's a valid explanation,
they don't want you to rush it just for a report.
Getting it right is the most important.
Exactly. At the end of the day. Now you mentioned the drug epidemic and the mental health issues. Is that, I shouldn't put words in your mouth, but what are the biggest issues you'll face as Steuben County Family Court judge?
Those issues, and then addressing those issues. So a lack of resources. We make do with what we have.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what the number is, but I heard it's just a ridiculous number of open positions at Steuben County Mental Health. I don't want to misquote it. I have a figure in my head. But there are so many open positions at Steuben County Mental Health that they're just overburdening the people that are there. So we need to figure out a way to draw more talent into the local area to address that issue. Drug and alcohol, we have the VA, which is a very good resource for our veterans, but Steuben County Drug and Alcohol, they need more assistance as well. And we're attempting to do that through our drug court in the legal system, and the DA's office is very open to that. The public defender's office is very involved in that. And so that's the way you address those issues, but we can always use more resources. We're never going to turn down money and positions.
Right. But it is so necessary, and at any level, the courts, the police department, sheriff's office, there's just such a lack, or there's too many job openings, and not enough of people applying. And in that case, it's life and death.
It is. I mean, and that's really what I want people to understand about the role of a judge in this system. Obviously, you need to have good police officers, you need to have good prosecutors, you need to have good defense, and you need to have a good judge. A breakdown at any one of those stages can lead to injustice and really tragedy. That's the important thing that I want people to understand is we all play different roles, but it's crucial that you have someone in this position with the experience and handling the in-courtroom activity and knowledge so that doesn't occur.
To use a phrase that politicians use a lot, how humbled were you when you received these great endorsements?
Very humbled.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a tremendous outpouring of support from individuals that I really modeled myself after.
Yeah.
And so it's been super to have their support.
Well, looking at the list, and I think it's important to know, if you don't mind, I'll do the heavy lifting, because I know it's sometimes awkward for people to read it. But PBA of the New York State Troopers, New York State Police Investigators Association, and then what did this mean for you, the Honorable Peter Bradstreet and the Honorable Phil Roach?
Those two are two of the more important endorsements, because those are people that have actually done the job.
Right.
So they know what's expected of someone in that position, and having their endorsement and support, as well as the support of Judge Latham,
that's right.
over in Canisteo. I've been on the phone several times with him, and all three of those have been mentors to me. When I grew up here, going to court with my father and answering the telephone in his law office, so I was able to observe them from a very young age. And when I came back to practice in front of them, especially as an attorney for the child, I was able to see very different styles that each of them had, but how they did their job and how they made people comfortable in the courtroom and how they showed them respect, but still kept it orderly and efficient. And so those endorsements mean the world to me.
And how valuable is it to have people like that you can call knowing that they did the job? Almost like you said, mentor, to have somebody there that can, you guys been through the same thing, right? It's when I see an old media person, I'm talking media,
yes.
right? It must be kind of nice to have that network.
Well, it was odd because I was an attorney that appeared before them, and then they had judges meetings every Thursday morning up in Bath that Judge Furfer, Judge Bradstreet, and Judge Latham would attend. And so for several months, I had attended those meetings because I was acting county and family court judge, so I would be in the room with them, and I would say, Judge Bradstreet, Judge Furfer, Judge Latham, and they would all go, no. When you're here, you're part of the group, and
right.
you can call us by our first names. I'm like, I'm not comfortable doing that.
No, isn't that funny? It's like running into an old teacher, still calling Mr. or Mrs.
It's exactly.
Right?
It's like seeing your teacher in the department store and going, oh.
Something's weird here. No, that is funny. Before we go, is there a place that people can find out more in case I didn't cover something?
I'm on Facebook. I have my website. And the contact and the email is judgemccarthy2024@gmail. Okay. So you just need to reach out. I'd be happy to answer anybody's questions. And again, I really just ask people to ask someone who's involved in the legal system, whether it be an attorney, a police officer, a clerk, anybody who has knowledge of the legal system, who they're voting for. And I'm confident that I'll be successful on November 5th.
And so in closing, what do you say to voters before they vote, either early vote or go in on November 5th?
Make sure that you're educated, not just about my race, about all the things on the propositions on the back. Just educate yourselves. And just for the record, there's going to be on the ballot this year, you'll see, especially here in the city of Corning, you have an opportunity to vote for Chris Tunney. You have an opportunity to vote for me, and Chris Tunney is a surrogate court judge. He's running unopposed. You have the opportunity to vote for me for family and county court judge, and then you have opportunity to vote for Chris Ferratella as the Corning City Court judge. So I just want that to be clear, that you're not choosing between any one of us.
I know.
We're all on the same line, just to make that clear.
And I'd also recommend, and people don't do this that frequently, but it's very easy to go to the Steuben County Board of Elections and look at your ballot. So
yes,
you
prior to.
Yes,
yep.
prior to, just so you have an idea. Well,
and they're and by the way, they're fantastic.
Yes.
Vicki Olin, she's a godsend to Steuben County. She's just so important to this process, and this is her busy time of year,
yes.
so I want to give her a shout out because she's been dealing with a lot this year.
Yes.
So I give her props.
Well, Judge Matt McCarthy has been our guest. Thanks so much for being on the program. Best of luck.
Thank you for having me, Frank.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay